The November desert holds its breath in the final hours before dawn, when the air carries that particular stillness that seems to amplify every sound across the vast Arizona landscape, where ancient mesas stand sentinel against a star-scattered sky that has witnessed countless stories unfold beneath its endless expanse. Here at the Dreamwave Motel, where the neon sign flickers against the darkness like a beacon for weary travelers, and the highway stretches endlessly in both directions, stories drift in like tumbleweeds carried on desert winds that have witnessed more than most would believe. Settling into the quiet corners of this place, where time seems to move differently, and the impossible feels just within reach. Tonight, as you settle into this quiet space between waking and sleeping, let yourself be drawn into one of those stories that has found its way to our doorstep, a tale that has echoed through decades and continues to spark conversations in diners and late-night radio shows across the country, from the neon-lit truck stops of Nevada to the coffee shops of small college towns, where researchers and skeptics alike debate the nature of reality itself. You'll find yourself transported to that particular moment when the ordinary world seemed to shift on its axis and 5 men in a pickup truck encountered something that would change their lives forever. It was November 5th, 1975, and the Mogollon Rim country of Arizona wore the crisp beauty of autumn like a familiar jacket, the ponderosa pines releasing their warm vanilla scent into air so clear and thin that every breath seemed to carry the essence of the high desert wilderness. Travis Walton, a 22-year-old logger with calloused hands and the lean build of someone who spent his days working among the towering pines, had spent another long day with his crew in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, where the sound of chainsaws and falling timber created the familiar symphony of honest work among trees that had stood sentinel for generations, their roots reaching deep into soil that had supported life long before the first European settlers arrived in this remote corner of the American Southwest. The logging crew had been working a Forest Service contract near Turkey Springs, that remote stretch of wilderness where civilization felt like a distant memory, and the only sounds after dark would be the whisper of wind through pine needles, the occasional call of a nightbird echoing across the vast silence, and perhaps the distant howl of a coyote announcing its presence to the star-filled sky. Travis Walton worked alongside his brother Dwayne, a man who shared not only his bloodline, but his practical approach to life and work, along with Mike Rogers, who led the crew with the steady competence of someone who understood both the dangers and rewards of working in the wilderness, and several other men who had spent countless days in these woods, learning to read the subtle signs of weather and terrain that could mean the difference between a successful day's work and potential disaster. The work site lay at an elevation of over 6,000 feet, where the air carried a crystalline quality that made distant mountains seem close enough to touch, and where the temperature could drop 30 degrees between noon and midnight, transforming the landscape from a place of warmth and industry into a realm of shadows and whispered mysteries. The crew had been thinning diseased trees and clearing undergrowth as part of a forest management program designed to reduce fire danger and promote healthy forest growth. Work that required both physical strength and an intimate knowledge of the forest's complex ecosystem. As the afternoon light began to fade and the temperature dropped with that sudden shift that comes to high desert country, painting the western sky in shades of amber and rose that seemed to set the very air aglow, the crew loaded their tools and prepared to head back to civilization, back to warm dinners and familiar beds in the small towns that dotted this sparsely populated region of Arizona. The pickup truck bounced along the forest road, its headlights cutting through the gathering dusk as they made their way through stands of pine and oak, past rocky outcroppings and hidden meadows where deer came to drink in the early morning hours, following the familiar route that would take them back to the small town of Snowflake, where streetlights would soon begin their nightly vigil over quiet residential streets, lined with modest homes and pickup trucks parked in driveways. The forest road wound through terrain that varied from dense stands of ponderosa pine to open meadows carpeted with native grasses and wildflowers, past geological formations that told the story of millions of years of volcanic activity and erosion, creating a landscape that seemed both ancient and alive with the subtle energy of the high desert ecosystem. The men in the truck knew every curve and straightaway of this route, having traveled it countless times in their months of working the contract, familiar with the spots where deer might cross and the places where the road surface became treacherous during the brief but intense thunderstorms that characterized the region's summer monsoon season. According to Travis Walton's account, as they rounded a bend in the forest road near a clearing that the crew had used for equipment staging during their work in the area, something extraordinary appeared ahead of them, something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their quiet corner of the world and transform a routine into a working day into an encounter that would echo through the decades. The men in that truck would later describe seeing a luminous object hovering silently above the trees, a craft that seemed to pulse with its own internal light, casting an ethereal glow across the forest floor, where pine needles lay scattered like nature's carpet, illuminating the surrounding vegetation with a quality of light unlike anything produced by conventional technology. The object, as described by the witnesses, appeared to be disc-shaped and roughly 35 feet in diameter, hovering approximately 15 feet above the ground, in a small clearing surrounded by tall pines whose dark silhouettes stood out against the craft's luminescent surface. The light emanating from the object was described as having a golden amber quality, warm and inviting rather than harsh or blinding, pulsing gently as if the craft itself were breathing or maintaining some kind of internal rhythm that synchronized with unknown processes occurring within its hull. Travis Walton claimed that curiosity overcame caution in that moment, and he stepped from the truck to get a closer look at this impossible sight, drawn by a fascination that seemed to override any sense of danger or the urgent warnings of his companions who remained near the vehicle. The other men watched, he said, as he approached the object, their voices calling him back, even as he moved closer to whatever had appeared in their familiar woods, the place where they had worked side by side for months without encountering anything more unusual than a startled deer, a circling hawk, or the occasional black bear foraging for food in the underbrush. The approach across the clearing was described by Travis as taking place in a kind of dreamlike state, where his normal caution and practical nature seemed suspended by an overwhelming sense of wonder and an almost magnetic attraction to the craft that hovered silently above the forest floor. The pine needles crunched beneath his boots as he moved closer, the familiar sounds and scents of the forest mingling with something indefinable that seemed to emanate from the object itself, a subtle energy that he described as making the air feel charged, similar to the sensation experienced before a lightning storm, but without the accompanying sense of threat or impending danger. What happened next, according to Travis Walton's account, defied every law of physics and common sense that these practical men had grown up accepting as the fundamental rules governing reality. He described being struck by some kind of energy beam that emanated from the craft, a force that lifted him from the ground and sent him sprawling, unconscious, while his companions watched in terror and disbelief from their position near the truck. Their familiar world suddenly transformed into something from the realm of science fiction, where the impossible became terrifyingly real in the space of a few heartbeats. The beam was described as a blue-green light that seemed to emerge from the underside of the craft, striking Travis in the chest and head area with an intensity that was both blinding and physically overwhelming. The witnesses claimed that the impact of the beam lifted Travis from the ground and threw him backward approximately 10 feet, where he landed motionless on the pine needle-covered forest floor, while the craft above seemed to pulse more brightly, as if the energy discharge had somehow activated or intensified its luminescent properties. Mike Rogers and the other crew members would later tell investigators that they fled in panic, their truck racing back along the forest road as they tried to process what they claimed to have witnessed, their minds struggling to accept the reality of what their eyes had shown them. The familiar forest that had been their workplace for months suddenly seemed alien and threatening, filled with shadows that might conceal other impossibilities, other challenges to their understanding of what was real and what was merely the product of overworked imaginations or collective hallucination. But conscience and loyalty brought them back, they said, back to search for their friend and co-worker, back to the clearing where the impossible had allegedly occurred, only to find the area empty, the mysterious craft gone without a trace, and Travis Walton nowhere to be found among the silent pines that stood like witnesses to whatever had occurred in those crucial moments. The clearing showed no signs of disturbance beyond the normal scattered pine needles and forest debris. No burn marks or impressions in the soil. No evidence that anything extraordinary had taken place in this quiet corner of the wilderness. The search that followed would involve law enforcement officers from multiple agencies, volunteers from the local community who knew the terrain and understood the dangers of the wilderness, and tracker dogs specially trained to follow human scent through the complex and challenging environment of the high desert forest. Sheriff Marlin Gillespie of Navajo County coordinated the effort, bringing in resources from across the region as the story began to attract attention far beyond the boundaries of this quiet corner of Arizona. Attention that would eventually reach investigators, researchers, and curious observers from around the world. The initial search focused on the immediate area around the clearing where Travis had allegedly disappeared, expanding outward in carefully coordinated patterns that took into account the terrain, weather conditions, and the various hazards that could threaten a person alone in the wilderness. Search teams combed through ravines and rocky outcroppings, checked abandoned mining shafts and natural caves, and followed game trails that wound through the densest parts of the forest, looking for any sign that might indicate what had happened to the missing logger. The terrain of the Mogollon Rim country presented significant challenges to the search effort, with its combination of dense forest, rocky terrain, and elevation changes that could hide a person from view even at relatively close range. The area was known for its network of natural caves and abandoned mining operations dating back to the early 20th century, any of which could have provided shelter for someone lost in the wilderness, or could have concealed evidence of foul play if the disappearance had a more conventional explanation. Weather conditions during the search period were typical for the high desert in late autumn, with daytime temperatures reaching into the 60s and nighttime lows dropping below freezing, creating conditions that would be challenging for someone without proper clothing and shelter. The search teams worked against time, knowing that each passing hour reduced the likelihood of finding Travis alive if he had somehow survived whatever had happened in the clearing and was wandering lost in the wilderness. For 5 days, according to the official reports filed by the Navajo County Sheriff's Office, Travis Walton remained missing, while his family and friends maintained vigil at the search command post, and the search teams scoured every ravine and ridge in the area where he had last been seen. The men who claimed to have witnessed his disappearance submitted to polygraph examinations administered by certified examiners and repeated questioning by law enforcement officers trained in interview techniques designed to detect deception or inconsistency in witness statements. The polygraph examinations were conducted by Cy Gilson, an experienced examiner certified by the Arizona Department of Public Safety, who administered the tests to 5 of the 6 crew members present during the alleged incident. The results indicated that the men were being truthful when they described seeing an unidentified flying object and witnessing Travis being struck by some kind of energy beam, though skeptics would later question both the reliability of polygraph testing in general and the specific conditions under which these tests were administered. The questioning by law enforcement officers was intensive and repetitive, with investigators looking for any inconsistencies in the witnesses' accounts that might suggest deception, collusion, or simple misidentification of conventional phenomena. The men were interviewed separately and together, their stories compared for discrepancies, and their backgrounds investigated for any evidence of motivation to fabricate such an extraordinary tale. Yet their accounts remained remarkably consistent throughout the interrogation process. Media attention began to focus on the case as word of the unusual circumstances surrounding Travis Walton's disappearance spread beyond the local community, attracting reporters and camera crews from television stations and newspapers across Arizona, and eventually from national news organizations. The story of a logger allegedly abducted by a UFO in the remote forests of Arizona captured public imagination and sparked debate about the possibility of extraterrestrial contact and the reliability of eyewitness testimony in cases involving extraordinary claims. Then, on November 10th, Travis Walton allegedly reappeared, calling from a phone booth outside a gas station in the nearby town of Heber, confused and disoriented, claiming to remember being inside some kind of craft, surrounded by beings that seemed to exist beyond the boundaries of human understanding. His voice, according to those who received the call, was weak and strained, and he seemed to have difficulty organizing his thoughts and expressing what he had experienced during his absence from the familiar world. His family and friends rushed to his location, finding him weak and shaken, apparently having lost weight during his absence. His clothes the same ones he had worn when he vanished, though now bearing the signs of his mysterious ordeal. Travis appeared dehydrated and exhausted, with a several-day growth of beard and eyes that seemed to reflect the strain of experiences that he struggled to put into words. Experiences that would challenge the limits of language and belief. The reunion took place in the early morning hours, with Travis's brother Dwayne and other family members gathering around him in the parking lot of the gas station, trying to provide comfort and support while attempting to understand what had happened to him during the 5 days he had been missing. The relief of finding him alive was tempered by concerns about his physical and mental condition and the extraordinary nature of the story he began to tell about his experiences during his absence. Medical attention was provided immediately, with Travis being examined by local physicians who documented his physical condition and conducted tests to determine his state of health after his ordeal. The medical examination revealed evidence of dehydration and weight loss, consistent with someone who had gone without adequate food and water for several days, though there were no obvious signs of injury beyond minor scratches and abrasions that could have been sustained during his alleged experiences or simply from being outdoors in the wilderness environment. The story Travis Walton told upon his return would become one of the most detailed and extensively investigated accounts of alleged alien abduction in the history of such claims. A narrative that would be analyzed, scrutinized, and debated by researchers, investigators, and skeptics for decades to come. He described awakening on what he perceived as some kind of examination table in a room with curved walls and an unusual quality of light, surrounded by beings with large eyes and small stature, creatures that seemed to communicate without words, their movements deliberate and precise as they conducted what appeared to be some kind of medical examination or procedure. The initial moments of consciousness, according to Travis's account, were marked by confusion and fear as he struggled to understand where he was and what was happening to him. The room in which he found himself was unlike any earthly architecture he had ever seen, with walls that seemed to curve seamlessly into the ceiling, creating a space that felt both enclosed and somehow infinite, illuminated by a soft, even light that had no apparent source and cast no shadows, creating an environment that seemed to exist outside the normal parameters of physical space. According to his account, Travis found himself in a series of rooms or chambers that defied conventional architecture, spaces that seemed to be part of a larger vessel or craft, each area serving a different function in what appeared to be a systematic process of examination and evaluation. The floors were described as having a slight give to them, neither hard like concrete nor soft like carpet, but something that seemed to adapt to the pressure of footsteps, creating a walking surface that was somehow both supportive and yielding. The beings that Travis claimed to encounter were described as having an almost childlike appearance, standing about 4 feet tall, with pale, smooth skin that seemed to have a slight luminescent quality, and eyes that were disproportionately large compared to their faces, dark and liquid-looking, that seemed to hold an intelligence that was both alien and somehow familiar, as if they were studying him with the same curiosity that he felt toward them. Their heads were larger in proportion to their bodies than would be normal for humans, and their features were delicate and refined, lacking the coarseness or variability that characterizes human facial structure. The clothing worn by these beings was described as form-fitting and seemingly made from a material that had no obvious texture or visible seams, appearing to be more like a second skin than conventional garments. The color was described as being a brownish or tan shade, though the unusual lighting in the chambers made it difficult to determine exact colors, and the materials seemed to have properties that allowed it to adapt to the movements of the wearer without bunching or restricting motion. The physical examination that Travis claimed to have undergone included procedures that he described as being both frightening and strangely painless, conducted by beings who seemed to work with the efficiency of medical professionals, though their methods and instruments were unlike anything from terrestrial medicine. He spoke of devices that seemed to scan his body without making physical contact, instruments that appeared to take samples of various types, and procedures that involved the application of what felt like energy or electromagnetic fields to different parts of his body. The examination table itself was described as being made from a material that felt warm to the touch and seemed to conform to his body shape, providing support while allowing the beings to access different areas for their procedures. The surface had a slightly textured feel, neither completely smooth nor rough, and seemed to be integrated with various monitoring and examination devices that operated without visible controls or obvious mechanical components, as if the entire table was a single, sophisticated instrument. One of the most vivid aspects of Travis's account involved a helmet-like device that was placed over his head during part of the examination process, a device that seemed to interface directly with his nervous system and created sensations that ranged from uncomfortable pressure to what he described as almost euphoric feelings of expansion and connection. The helmet was described as being lightweight despite its apparent complexity, fitting over his head without pressure points or discomfort, and somehow creating a seal that allowed it to function without restricting his breathing or vision. The sensations produced by the helmet device were described as being unlike anything in normal human experience, creating effects that seemed to involve not just the physical senses, but also mental and emotional responses that suggested the device was capable of interacting with consciousness itself. Travis described feelings of expansion, as if his awareness was somehow enlarged or enhanced, alternating with periods of focused attention where specific memories or experiences seemed to be highlighted or examined by some external intelligence. Eventually, according to his account, Travis was led to what appeared to be a control room or observation deck, where he encountered beings that seemed different from his initial captors, taller and more human-like in appearance, wearing clothing that resembled form-fitting coveralls or uniforms of a more sophisticated design than the simple garments worn by the smaller beings. These taller beings, he claimed, seemed to be in charge of the operation, and it was they who eventually escorted him to what he perceived as an exit, leading him through corridors that hummed with some kind of energy he could feel but not identify. The taller beings were described as being closer to human height, perhaps 5.5 to 6 feet tall, with more conventionally proportioned heads and facial features that, while still distinctly non-human, were more familiar and less unsettling than those of the smaller creatures. Their eyes, while still larger than human eyes, were more proportional to their faces, and their overall appearance suggested a kind of evolutionary relationship to the smaller beings, as if they represented different stages of development or different roles within their society. The control room was described as being larger and more complex than the examination chambers, with surfaces that seemed to display information in ways that Travis could not understand, though he sensed that the displays were showing data about various systems and processes occurring throughout the craft. The room had a central area that seemed designed for observation, with what appeared to be viewing ports or screens that showed the outside environment, though the perspective seemed to shift and change in ways that suggested the craft was either moving or the viewing system was capable of showing multiple locations simultaneously. The return journey, as Travis described it, involved being placed in a smaller craft or pod that transported him back to the forest near where he had originally disappeared, though he remembered little of the actual transit beyond the sensation of movement and the gradual return of familiar earthly sounds and smells. The smaller craft was described as being more cramped than the main vessel, with seating that seemed designed for beings smaller than humans, though it accommodated him adequately for the relatively short journey back to Earth. The transition from the artificial environment of the craft to the natural environment of the forest was described as being both relief and shock, as Travis's senses readjusted to the familiar sights, sounds, and smells of the wilderness where he had worked for months. The air felt different, more substantial, and filled with the complex mixture of scents that characterize a living ecosystem, in contrast to the sterile, controlled atmosphere of the craft, where even the air seemed artificial and precisely regulated. He claimed to have awakened on the ground near the road, the craft already gone, leaving him alone in the familiar woods with only his memories of the experience and the physical evidence of his 5-day absence, disoriented and struggling to understand what had happened to him and how he had returned to the world he knew. The forest around him was exactly as he remembered it, with the same trees and terrain features, yet somehow it all seemed different, as if his experience had changed his perception of the familiar landscape and made him aware of possibilities he had never considered before. The investigation that followed Travis Walton's return involved multiple law enforcement agencies, including the Navajo County Sheriff's Office under Sheriff Marlin Gillespie, the Arizona Department of Public Safety, and various federal agencies that became interested in the case due to its unusual nature and the potential national security implications of reports involving unidentified flying objects. The investigation was thorough and professional, with investigators approaching the case with the same methodical attention to detail that would be applied to any serious criminal investigation. Polygraph examinations were administered to multiple witnesses by certified examiners, using equipment and techniques that met law enforcement standards for reliability and accuracy. The results of these examinations seemed to support the witnesses' claims that they were being truthful when they described their experiences, though the interpretation of polygraph results in cases involving extraordinary claims remains a subject of ongoing debate among investigators, scientists, and legal professionals who question the reliability of such tests under unusual circumstances. Dr. James Harder, a professor of civil engineering at the University of California, Berkeley, and a respected researcher in the field of unexplained phenomena, became involved in the investigation after being contacted by law enforcement officials who were seeking expert consultation on the unusual aspects of the case. Dr. Harder brought academic credentials and scientific methodology to his investigation, conducting extensive interviews with Travis and the other witnesses, using techniques designed to evaluate the consistency and credibility of their accounts. Dr. Harder's findings, published in various academic and research publications, suggested that the case deserved serious consideration, despite the extraordinary nature of the claims involved, and he noted the unusual consistency and detail of the accounts provided by all involved parties. His analysis included evaluation of the witnesses' psychological profiles, assessment of their motivations for reporting such an unusual experience, and comparison of their accounts with similar cases documented in the research literature. The story attracted the attention of other researchers as well, including investigators associated with the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, known as APRO, a scientific organization founded in 1952 and dedicated to the investigation of unidentified flying objects and related phenomena. APRO brought decades of investigative experience and a database of similar cases to bear on the Walton case, providing context and comparative analysis that helped place the incident within the broader pattern of reported UFO encounters. The Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON, another organization dedicated to the scientific investigation of UFO reports, also became involved in the case, assigning experienced field investigators to conduct independent interviews and evaluations of the evidence. MUFON's involvement brought additional expertise in investigative methodology and access to a network of researchers and consultants who could provide specialized analysis of various aspects of the case. These organizations brought their own methodologies and expertise to bear on the Walton case, conducting additional interviews, reviewing physical evidence, and comparing the account to other similar cases in their extensive databases. The comparison with other cases revealed certain consistent elements that researchers found significant, including similarities in the description of the alleged craft, the appearance and behavior of the beings encountered, and the nature of the medical examination procedures reported by abduction claimants. Over the years, the Travis Walton case has been subjected to numerous re-examinations and investigations by researchers representing various perspectives and methodologies, with some finding elements that support the witnesses' claims, while others point to inconsistencies or alternative explanations for the events described. The case has been featured in documentaries, books, academic papers, and television programs, becoming one of the most thoroughly documented alleged abduction cases in the literature of unexplained phenomena. The physical evidence from the case includes the results of medical examinations conducted on Travis after his return, which reportedly showed certain anomalies that were difficult to explain through conventional means, though skeptics have offered alternative explanations for these findings. The medical evaluation included blood tests, physical examination for injuries or unusual marks, and psychological assessment to determine his mental state following the alleged experience, with results that have been interpreted differently by supporters and skeptics of his account. Additionally, the consistency of the witnesses' accounts over the decades since the incident has been noted by researchers as unusual, given the tendency of such stories to change and evolve over time under the pressure of repeated telling, media attention, and the natural processes of memory that typically alter recollections of traumatic or unusual events. The stability of their accounts has been seen by some as evidence of truthfulness, while others suggest it indicates rehearsal or coordination among the witnesses. The polygraph examinations conducted on the witnesses have been both praised and criticized by various investigators, with supporters noting the apparent credibility of the results, while skeptics question the reliability of such tests in cases involving highly charged emotional situations and extraordinary claims. The debate over the polygraph results reflects the broader challenge of evaluating evidence in cases that push the boundaries of conventional understanding and accepted scientific paradigms, where traditional investigative methods may not be adequate to address the unique aspects of the phenomena under investigation. Travis Walton himself has maintained his account of the events consistently over the decades, participating in numerous interviews, documentaries, and public presentations about his experience, never wavering from his basic narrative despite intense scrutiny and occasional hostile questioning from skeptics and debunkers. He has written books detailing his account, including The Walton Experience and later Fire in the Sky, and has worked with researchers and investigators who continue to study the case, though he has also faced criticism and skepticism from those who question the validity of his claims and the motivations behind his continued public discussion of the events. The impact of the Travis Walton case extends beyond the immediate circumstances of the alleged abduction, influencing public discourse about the possibility of extraterrestrial contact and the nature of reality itself. The case has been cited in academic discussions about the sociology of belief, the psychology of extraordinary experiences, and the challenges of investigating claims that fall outside the boundaries of conventional scientific methodology and understanding, contributing to broader discussions about how society deals with reports of anomalous phenomena. The cultural impact of the story has been significant as well, inspiring fictional works including the motion picture Fire in the Sky, which dramatized the events though with significant artistic license that Travis Walton himself has noted differs substantially from his actual account. The film's portrayal of the experience emphasized the more frightening and dramatic elements of the story, creating a version that resonated with popular culture's fascination with alien encounters, while potentially distorting public understanding of the actual claims made by the witnesses and the more subtle aspects of the alleged experience. The Hollywood adaptation, while bringing the story to a wider audience, created certain misconceptions about the actual events as described by Travis Walton, particularly regarding the nature of his treatment aboard the alleged craft and the appearance and behavior of the beings he claimed to encounter. The film's emphasis on horror and violence differed significantly from Travis's own description of his experience, which, while frightening and disorienting, was not characterized by the malevolent intent suggested by the movie's dramatic interpretation. The town of Snowflake, Arizona, where Travis Walton lived at the time of the incident, has become something of a pilgrimage site for those interested in the case, with visitors seeking to understand the landscape and community that formed the backdrop for these extraordinary claims. The surrounding Apache Sitgreaves National Forest remains largely unchanged from that November evening in 1975, its pine-covered ridges and hidden clearings still holding the same mysterious potential that characterizes wild places everywhere, though the specific site of the alleged encounter has become a destination for UFO researchers and curious tourists. The broader context of the Travis Walton case includes its place within the larger phenomenon of alleged alien abduction accounts that began to emerge in significant numbers during the latter half of the 20th century, following the widely publicized Betty and Barney Hill case of 1961, and continuing through the present day. Researchers have noted similarities between Walton's account and other reported cases, including certain consistent elements in the descriptions of the beings encountered, the nature of the alleged examinations, and the psychological aftermath experienced by those who claim such encounters. The scientific and academic communities have approached the Walton case with varying degrees of skepticism and interest, with some researchers arguing that such accounts deserve serious investigation, regardless of their ultimate explanation, while others maintain that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence that has not been forthcoming. The case has become part of the broader debate about the nature of consciousness, the reliability of human perception and memory, and the possibility that our understanding of reality may be incomplete in ways that we have not yet recognized or acknowledged. Contemporary researchers continue to examine the case using modern investigative techniques and technologies, including advanced polygraph methods that incorporate computer analysis and sophisticated physiological monitoring, psychological evaluation procedures that draw on current understanding of trauma and memory, and computer-assisted analysis of witness statements and physical evidence that can detect patterns and inconsistencies not apparent to traditional investigative methods. These ongoing investigations reflect the enduring interest in the case and the continuing evolution of methodologies for evaluating claims that challenge conventional understanding of what is possible within our current scientific paradigm. The psychological aspects of the Travis Walton case have been studied extensively by researchers interested in understanding both the immediate trauma reported by the witnesses and the long-term effects of their experience on their personal lives, relationships, and worldview. The consistency of their accounts over decades has been noted as unusual in cases involving traumatic experiences, where memories typically evolve and change over time due to the natural processes of memory consolidation and the influence of subsequent information and experiences. Though supporters and skeptics interpret this consistency differently, the case has also contributed to ongoing discussions about the nature of evidence and the standards of proof required for accepting claims that challenge established scientific understanding, particularly in cases where the phenomena under investigation may not be repeatable under controlled conditions or subject to traditional experimental verification. The combination of multiple witness testimony, polygraph results, physical evidence, and detailed narrative accounts has created a case study that continues to be debated in academic and research circles, with different investigators reaching different conclusions based on their analysis of the same basic facts and evidence. The media coverage of the Travis Walton case over the decades has ranged from serious investigative reporting by experienced journalists to sensationalized accounts that emphasize the more dramatic and frightening elements of the story, while ignoring the more subtle and complex aspects of the witnesses' claims. This varied coverage has influenced public perception of the case and has sometimes created misconceptions about the actual events described by the witnesses, demonstrating the challenges of accurately communicating complex and controversial information through popular media channels that may prioritize entertainment value over factual accuracy. Educational institutions have used the Travis Walton case as a teaching tool in courses related to critical thinking, research methodology, and the evaluation of extraordinary claims, recognizing its value as a case study that illustrates the difficulties of investigating events that fall outside conventional categories of experience and understanding. The case provides a concrete example of the challenges faced by researchers and investigators when dealing with phenomena that resist easy classification or explanation, requiring approaches that may differ significantly from standard scientific and investigative methodologies. The technological implications of the Travis Walton case, if the account is accepted as accurate, would suggest the existence of advanced propulsion systems capable of silent hovering and rapid acceleration, medical technologies that can interface directly with human consciousness and physiology, and materials science capabilities that far exceed current human knowledge and capabilities. Researchers have speculated about the potential scientific breakthroughs that could result from understanding the technologies allegedly involved in such encounters, though such speculation remains highly theoretical given the unproven nature of the underlying claims. The propulsion system described by the witnesses, capable of silent hovering and rapid acceleration without apparent reaction mass or visible exhaust, would represent a revolutionary advance in physics if it could be understood and replicated. Theoretical physicists have proposed various exotic propulsion concepts that might account for such capabilities, including manipulation of gravitational fields, utilization of zero-point energy, or application of principles from theoretical physics that have not yet been experimentally verified or practically implemented. The international interest in the Travis Walton case has made it one of the most widely known alleged abduction accounts worldwide, with researchers and investigators from many countries studying the case and comparing it to similar reports from their own regions. This global perspective has revealed certain cross-cultural consistencies in abduction accounts that some researchers find significant, while others attribute to the influence of popular culture and media coverage of such cases, raising questions about whether reported similarities reflect common underlying experiences or shared cultural narratives about extraterrestrial contact. The religious and philosophical implications of the Travis Walton case have been explored by theologians, philosophers, and scholars of comparative religion, who have examined how such accounts might fit within various belief systems and worldviews. The case has been interpreted through numerous philosophical and spiritual frameworks, from purely materialist explanations involving psychological phenomena or misidentification of conventional objects, to theories involving consciousness, parallel dimensions, and the nature of reality itself as understood through various mystical and metaphysical traditions. Some religious thinkers have interpreted alleged abduction experiences as modern manifestations of spiritual or mystical encounters that have been reported throughout human history, suggesting that the technological framing of contemporary accounts may reflect cultural expectations about how non-human intelligence might manifest in an age of scientific materialism. Others have viewed such accounts as challenges to traditional religious understanding that require new theological frameworks for comprehending humanity's place in a cosmos that may contain other forms of conscious life. The economic impact of the Travis Walton case on the local community has been modest but notable, with the story attracting tourists and researchers to the area and generating interest in local businesses and services. The town of Snowflake and the surrounding region have embraced their connection to this famous case, while maintaining a balanced perspective that acknowledges both the believers and skeptics who visit the area seeking to understand what happened on that November evening decades ago, creating a form of tourism that combines curiosity about unexplained phenomena with appreciation for the natural beauty and historical significance of the region. Local businesses have benefited from the interest generated by the case, including hotels, restaurants, and guide services that cater to visitors interested in UFO-related tourism, while the broader regional economy has gained from the national and international attention focused on this part of Arizona. The case has become part of the area's identity and cultural heritage, joining the region's mining history, natural attractions, and frontier heritage as elements that define its character and appeal to visitors. The forensic aspects of the case have been examined by experts in various fields, including medical professionals who have reviewed the physical evidence and findings from Travis's post-return medical examination, and law enforcement specialists who have analyzed the investigative procedures used in the original case. These expert opinions have added additional layers of complexity to the case, with different specialists reaching different conclusions about the significance and interpretation of various pieces of evidence and testimony, reflecting the challenges of applying conventional forensic methods to cases involving extraordinary claims. The medical evidence has been particularly scrutinized, with some experts noting unusual aspects of Travis's physical condition upon his return that were difficult to explain through conventional means, while others have suggested that the observed effects could result from exposure, dehydration, or psychological stress. The absence of physical injuries that might be expected from the violent encounter described by the witnesses has been noted by some as evidence against the literal truth of the account, while supporters suggest that advanced medical technology might be capable of procedures that leave no conventional traces or evidence detectable by current human medical science. The Travis Walton case has influenced the development of investigative protocols and methodologies used by researchers studying similar phenomena, contributing to the evolution of more sophisticated and rigorous approaches to investigating extraordinary claims that fall outside conventional categories of human experience. The lessons learned from this case have been applied to subsequent investigations, helping to improve the quality and reliability of research in this challenging field of study, where traditional scientific methods may need to be adapted or supplemented to address the unique characteristics of the phenomena under investigation. Researchers have developed specialized interview techniques designed to minimize the influence of leading questions and suggestion, while maximizing the recovery of accurate information from witnesses who claim extraordinary experiences. These techniques draw on advances in cognitive psychology and memory research to create protocols that can better distinguish between genuine recollections and false memories that might be created through suggestion, expectation, or unconscious fabrication, though the application of these methods to cases involving claims of alien contact remains controversial and challenging. The personal toll of the experience on Travis Walton and the other witnesses has been documented through interviews and psychological evaluations conducted over the years since the incident, revealing the long-term impact of being involved in such a controversial and publicly scrutinized case. The witnesses have described dealing with skepticism, ridicule, and unwanted attention while maintaining their commitment to their account of the events they claim to have experienced, facing challenges that include damage to personal relationships, professional consequences, and ongoing psychological stress related to their involvement in the case. Travis Walton has spoken about the difficulty of living with memories of experiences that challenge conventional understanding of reality, describing periods of doubt and confusion as he struggled to integrate his alleged experiences with his understanding of the world and his place within it. The social isolation that can result from claiming such extraordinary experiences has been a significant factor in his life, as has the ongoing burden of public attention and the responsibility he feels to maintain his account, despite the personal costs involved. The other witnesses have faced similar challenges, with some choosing to minimize their public involvement in discussions of the case, while others have remained willing to speak about their experiences, despite the skepticism and criticism they have encountered. The consistency of their support for Travis's account over the decades has been noted by researchers as significant, particularly given the social and professional pressures that might encourage them to distance themselves from such controversial claims. The case has contributed to broader discussions about the nature of trauma, memory, and the reliability of eyewitness testimony in cases involving extraordinary or highly stressful situations, providing researchers with a detailed case study that illustrates many of the challenges involved in evaluating human testimony about events that fall outside normal experience. Researchers have used the Travis Walton case to explore questions about how the human mind processes and remembers experiences that fall outside the normal range of human experience, and how social and cultural factors might influence the reporting and interpretation of such events. The stability of the witnesses' accounts over time has been particularly interesting to memory researchers, who have noted that traumatic memories typically show certain patterns of change and evolution that are not apparent in this case. Some researchers have suggested that this stability indicates the witnesses are reporting genuine experiences as they remember them, while others have proposed that the consistency results from repeated telling and reinforcement of a shared narrative that may have diverged from the original events through collective memory processes. The technological analysis of the alleged craft described by Travis Walton and the other witnesses has attracted the attention of engineers and physicists who have attempted to understand the propulsion systems and energy sources that would be required for the behaviors described in their account. While such analysis remains highly speculative, given the unverified nature of the claims, it has contributed to theoretical discussions about advanced propulsion concepts and exotic energy systems that might be possible within the framework of known physics, or through the application of theoretical principles that have not yet been experimentally confirmed. The described capabilities of the craft, including silent hovering, rapid acceleration, and the ability to produce directed energy beams, would require technologies that significantly exceed current human capabilities in multiple areas of engineering and physics. Engineers have proposed various theoretical approaches that might account for such capabilities, including manipulation of electromagnetic fields, utilization of exotic matter or energy sources, or application of principles from quantum mechanics that might allow for novel forms of propulsion and energy projection. The energy beam that allegedly struck Travis Walton has been the subject of particular speculation among physicists and engineers, who have attempted to understand what type of directed energy system might be capable of producing the effects described by the witnesses. The beam was described as being capable of lifting a human being from the ground and rendering him unconscious, effects that would require precise control of energy delivery and targeting systems that exceed current human technology by a significant margin. The case has also been examined from the perspective of anthropology and sociology, with researchers studying how such accounts reflect broader cultural anxieties, hopes, and beliefs about humanity's place in the universe and the possibility of contact with non-human intelligence. The Travis Walton case has been interpreted as both a literal account of extraordinary events and as a cultural phenomenon that reveals important aspects of contemporary society's relationship with science, technology, and the unknown, providing insights into how humans process and integrate experiences that challenge their understanding of reality. Anthropologists have noted that abduction accounts like Travis Walton's share certain structural similarities with traditional folklore and mythological narratives found in cultures around the world, suggesting that such stories may serve important psychological and social functions regardless of their literal truth. The accounts often involve themes of transformation, testing, and return that are common in hero myths and shamanic narratives, raising questions about whether modern abduction accounts represent a contemporary form of myth-making that addresses similar psychological and spiritual needs. Sociologists have examined how the Travis Walton case and similar accounts function within contemporary society, noting their role in challenging scientific orthodoxy and providing alternative explanations for experiences that do not fit easily within conventional frameworks of understanding. The case has been seen as reflecting broader tensions between scientific materialism and experiential knowledge, between institutional authority and individual testimony, and between the desire for rational explanation and the need to accommodate experiences that resist conventional analysis. The ongoing interest in the Travis Walton case reflects humanity's enduring fascination with mysteries that challenge our understanding of reality and our place in the cosmos, representing a form of modern mythology that addresses fundamental questions about consciousness, identity, and the nature of existence itself. Whether viewed as a genuine account of extraordinary events or as a complex case study in human psychology and belief, the story continues to provoke discussion and investigation more than 4 decades after that November evening in the Arizona wilderness. The case has also contributed to the development of new research methodologies specifically designed to investigate anomalous phenomena that do not fit easily within traditional scientific paradigms. Researchers have developed interdisciplinary approaches that combine elements from psychology, sociology, physics, and other fields to create more comprehensive frameworks for evaluating extraordinary claims, recognizing that phenomena at the boundaries of human understanding may require new forms of investigation that go beyond the methods traditionally used in any single academic discipline. The use of advanced statistical analysis and computer modeling has allowed researchers to examine patterns in abduction accounts that might not be apparent through traditional investigative methods, revealing correlations and trends that have informed discussions about the nature and origin of such reports. These analytical approaches have been applied to the Travis Walton case and others, providing new perspectives on the consistency and reliability of witness testimony and the potential significance of reported similarities between different cases. The integration of findings from neuroscience and consciousness research has also informed investigations of the Travis Walton case, as researchers have sought to understand how the human brain might process and remember experiences that fall outside normal parameters of perception and cognition. Studies of altered states of consciousness, memory formation under stress, and the neural basis of unusual perceptual experiences have provided new frameworks for evaluating claims of alien contact and other extraordinary experiences. The environmental and atmospheric conditions present during the alleged Travis Walton encounter have been analysed by atmospheric physicists and meteorologists, who have examined whether natural phenomena might account for some aspects of the witness's observations. The high-altitude location, atmospheric conditions typical of the region in late autumn, and the presence of electrical storm activity in the area during the time period have all been considered as potential factors that might have influenced the witnesses' perceptions or created unusual visual effects that could be misinterpreted as anomalous phenomena. The geophysical characteristics of the encounter site have also been studied, with researchers examining the geological structure of the area, local magnetic field variations, and other environmental factors that might be relevant to understanding the reported events. Some researchers have proposed that certain geological formations might be associated with increased reports of anomalous phenomena, though the mechanisms underlying such correlations remain speculative and controversial within the scientific community. The astronomical context of the Travis Walton case has been analyzed by researchers who have examined the positions of celestial objects, satellite activity, and other astronomical phenomena that were present during the time of the alleged encounter. While no conventional astronomical explanations have been found that adequately account for the witnesses' observations, the analysis has helped rule out certain mundane explanations and has provided additional context for understanding the environmental conditions present during the incident. The military and intelligence implications of the Travis Walton case have been the subject of speculation and investigation, with researchers examining whether the incident might be related to classified government projects or experimental aircraft testing. The proximity of military installations and testing areas to the encounter site has led some researchers to suggest that the witnesses might have encountered advanced human technology rather than extraterrestrial phenomena, though no definitive evidence has been found to support such explanations. Freedom of Information Act requests have been filed seeking government documents related to the Travis Walton case, resulting in the release of some materials that indicate official interest in the incident, though the documents released have been heavily redacted and provide limited insight into the nature and extent of government investigation of the case. The official response to the case has been characterized by the same ambiguity and limited disclosure that characterizes government handling of UFO-related incidents generally. The psychological profiling of Travis Walton and the other witnesses has been conducted by mental health professionals seeking to understand their motivations, mental state, and credibility as witnesses to extraordinary events. These evaluations have generally found the witnesses to be psychologically normal individuals without obvious signs of mental illness, delusional thinking, or personality disorders that might account for fabricated or mistaken testimony, though the interpretation of such evaluations in the context of extraordinary claims remains a subject of debate among professionals. The family dynamics and social relationships of the witnesses have been examined as potential factors that might influence their reporting of the alleged events, with researchers looking for evidence of collusion, shared delusion, or other psychological phenomena that might explain the consistency of their accounts. The investigation of these factors has generally supported the credibility of the witnesses as individuals who are unlikely to have conspired to fabricate such an elaborate hoax, though alternative explanations for their shared experience continue to be proposed and debated. The impact of the Travis Walton case on UFO research and investigation has been significant, providing researchers with a detailed case study that exemplifies many of the challenges and opportunities involved in investigating reports of anomalous phenomena. The case has been used as a benchmark against which other abduction accounts are compared, and has influenced the development of investigative protocols and evaluation criteria used by researchers in the field. The case has also contributed to ongoing debates about the standards of evidence and proof that should be applied to claims of extraterrestrial contact, with some researchers arguing that the Walton case meets reasonable standards for credibility and deserves acceptance as evidence of genuine anomalous phenomena, while others maintain that even the best documented cases fall short of the extraordinary evidence required to support such extraordinary claims. The educational value of the Travis Walton case extends beyond its specific content to its usefulness as a tool for teaching critical thinking, research methodology, and the evaluation of controversial claims in academic and educational settings. The case provides a concrete example of how complex investigations can be conducted, how evidence can be evaluated and interpreted, and how reasonable people can reach different conclusions based on their analysis of the same information. The case has been used in courses on psychology, sociology, anthropology, and philosophy to illustrate various concepts related to human perception, memory, belief formation, and the social construction of knowledge. Students studying the case are challenged to evaluate competing explanations, assess the credibility of witnesses, and consider the implications of accepting or rejecting extraordinary claims, providing valuable experience in critical analysis and logical reasoning. The technological legacy of the Travis Walton case includes its influence on speculation about advanced propulsion systems, directed energy weapons, and medical technologies that might be developed through understanding of the phenomena allegedly observed during the encounter. While such speculation remains highly theoretical, it has contributed to discussions about the potential applications of exotic physics and advanced engineering concepts that might emerge from future scientific developments. The case has also influenced the development of detection and recording technologies designed to document anomalous phenomena, with researchers developing sophisticated monitoring systems that might be capable of providing more definitive evidence in future cases. These technological approaches include electromagnetic sensors, radiation detectors, and advanced optical recording systems that could potentially capture objective evidence of encounters similar to the one described by Travis Walton and his companions. The international research collaboration that has developed around the Travis Walton case reflects the global interest in understanding anomalous phenomena and the need for cross-cultural perspectives in evaluating extraordinary claims. Researchers from many countries have contributed to the investigation and analysis of the case, bringing diverse methodological approaches and cultural perspectives that have enriched the overall understanding of the phenomena and their implications. The case has been presented at international conferences and symposiums devoted to the study of UFO phenomena, anomalous experiences, and consciousness research, providing a forum for researchers to share their findings and debate their interpretations with colleagues from around the world. These international exchanges have helped advance the field of anomalous phenomena research and have contributed to the development of more sophisticated and rigorous investigative methodologies. The philosophical implications of the Travis Walton case extend to fundamental questions about the nature of reality, consciousness, and humanity's place in the universe, challenging assumptions about what is possible within the framework of current scientific understanding. The case raises questions about the limits of human knowledge, the reliability of empirical observation, and the criteria for determining truth in cases where conventional methodologies may be inadequate. The case has been examined through various philosophical frameworks, including phenomenology, which focuses on the subjective experience of the witnesses, epistemology, which examines how knowledge is acquired and validated, and ontology, which deals with questions about the nature of existence and reality. These philosophical approaches have provided different perspectives on the significance and meaning of the reported events, contributing to a more nuanced understanding of their implications. The ethical dimensions of the Travis Walton case include questions about the responsibility of researchers and media to fairly represent the witnesses and their claims, the potential harm that might result from public ridicule or skepticism directed at individuals reporting extraordinary experiences, and the broader social responsibility to investigate claims that might have significant implications for human understanding of reality. The treatment of Travis Walton and the other witnesses by researchers, media, and the public has raised important questions about how society should respond to individuals who report experiences that challenge conventional understanding, balancing the need for critical evaluation with respect for human dignity and the right to be heard. The case has highlighted the potential for secondary trauma that can result from the social response to extraordinary claims, regardless of their ultimate truth or falsity. The legacy of the Travis Walton case continues to evolve as new generations of researchers and investigators bring fresh perspectives and methodologies to bear on the questions it raises about human experience, the nature of reality, and the possibility of contact with non-human intelligence. The case remains an active subject of investigation and debate, with new analyses and interpretations being published regularly in academic journals, research publications, and popular media. The enduring fascination with the Travis Walton case reflects deeper human needs and curiosities about our place in the cosmos, the possibility of other forms of conscious life, and the potential for experiences that transcend the ordinary boundaries of human existence. Whether ultimately validated or explained through conventional means, the case continues to serve as a catalyst for exploration, investigation, and speculation about the mysteries that surround us and the limits of our current understanding. As the night deepens here at the Dreamwave Motel and the desert air carries the scent of sage and distant pine across the vast Arizona landscape, the story of Travis Walton settles into the collection of tales that have found their way to this quiet crossroads between the known and unknown. The highway stretches endlessly in both directions, carrying travelers toward destinations both familiar and mysterious, while the stars above continue their ancient vigil over landscapes that have witnessed more than most would believe possible, their distant light touching the same earth where extraordinary events may have unfolded on that November evening decades ago. The gentle rhythm of the desert night, with its subtle sounds of wind through pine needles, the distant call of a coyote announcing its presence to the star-filled sky, and the almost imperceptible shifting of shadows as the moon moves across its celestial path, provides the perfect backdrop for contemplating stories that push the boundaries of conventional understanding. These tales remind us that the universe may hold more mysteries than our current knowledge can encompass, more possibilities than our present understanding can accommodate, and more wonders than our imagination can fully grasp. In the peaceful quiet of this place between sleeping and waking, between belief and skepticism, between the everyday world and the realm of extraordinary possibility, all stories find their place and their purpose, becoming part of the vast tapestry of human experience that includes both the mundane and the miraculous, the explicable and the mysterious. The Travis Walton case, with its detailed testimony, extensive investigation, and enduring controversy, represents one thread in this tapestry, a story that continues to challenge and inspire those who encounter it. Let the cool desert air and the distant whisper of wind through pine needles carry you gently toward rest, knowing that somewhere in the vast expanse above, questions remain unanswered and mysteries continue to unfold, waiting perhaps for future generations to unlock their secrets and understand their significance. The night sky that Travis Walton looked up at from that forest clearing in 1975 is the same sky that spreads above us now, filled with the same stars and the same infinite possibilities. The same potential for wonder and discovery that has inspired human curiosity since the beginning of time. The Dreamwave Motel keeps its doors open for all travelers, all stories, and all the endless possibilities that drift across the desert night, like stars slowly wheeling across the infinite sky, each one carrying its own light and its own mysteries. In this quiet refuge between destinations, between certainties and questions, between the known world and the vast unknown that surrounds it, every tale finds its place, every experience finds its value, and every mystery finds its purpose in the greater story of human exploration and discovery. As sleep approaches and consciousness begins its gentle transition into the realm of dreams, let yourself be carried by the rhythm of this ancient desert, where time moves differently and the boundaries between reality and possibility become as permeable as the night air itself. The story of Travis Walton joins the countless other stories that have been told beneath these stars, becoming part of the endless conversation between humanity and the cosmos, between the known and the unknown, between what we understand and what continues to challenge our understanding. In the growing quiet of the desert night, where the only sounds are the whisper of wind and the distant song of the wilderness, the mysteries remain, waiting patiently for those brave enough to seek them, curious enough to question them, and open enough to consider possibilities that extend beyond the comfortable boundaries of conventional belief and understanding.